Today, we're going to talk about different economic systems. Again, we talked about government types last week with the 6 different government types. Today, we're going to talk about the 3 different economic systems that countries have. So you're going to hear the phrase economy mentioned a lot during, especially now in the next 40 some days until November 3rd election. The economy is not doing well. The economy is doing great. We need to improve the economy. You're going to hear that a lot. And essentially what that means at an 8th grade level is the way goods and services are made and used. So economy means the way goods and services are made and used. Goods and services can be anything from education that you receive to the hospitals that you go to, the military that we provide, the food that we eat, the cars that we drive, any of that, the mail services that we use. So economy, the way goods and services are made and used. Who and what makes up an economy? The first part of an economy is a consumer. A consumer is someone who uses goods and services. Okay, so you as a student going to a public school are consuming the service of public education. And so that would be an example of you being a consumer. You're also a consumer when you go with grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, brother, sister, cousins, whoever to Coburn's or Walmart. You are a consumer of the products that they sell. You're a consumer when you buy a new car. You're a consumer when you go to a hospital. Those are all services or goods that are being provided to you. The opposite of a consumer then is the producer. That is someone who is making the goods you use or offers the services to others. So the goods you use, the producer, Coburn's could be considered a producer, Walmart could be considered a producer, but even more, the companies that's making the pasta and the milk and the cereal and the deli meat and the produce, fruits and vegetables that you consume, chips, pop, whatever, those would be the producers. Okay, so consumers are the people that use the goods and services. The producers are those who make goods and offer services to other people. The third part of an economy would be people coming in here, add them to the list. Sorry. Would be regulations. So regulations are rules that are made by the government. For example, a regulation that the schools and that we have to follow by law, by the government's orders, for right now is the mask mandate. If you're in a public setting, you need to wear a mask. Kids that are in person have to wear a mask in class, myself included. You go to a store, it's expected. There's a regulation that you're supposed to wear a mask. Now, not everyone follows that, but it is a regulation that's put in place. Other regulations, and the purpose of regulations is they should help the consumer. And so we have the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, which their job is to make sure that the food that is being put on the shelves of our grocery stores or being put on your plates at a restaurant or in the bag at the drive-thru, that the producers are following certain health and safety protocols to ensure that you're eating food that is safe for you. And so expiration dates, for example, is a form of a regulation. Another regulation that countries can use is, like, for example, we have fuel efficiency standards on cars, which means cars need to be X miles per gallon efficient, right? If every car could be 2 miles per, if every car was made was 2 miles per gallon, you'd have to pay a ton of money for gas. And so cars are made where they have to meet certain fuel efficiency standards. So those are regulations or rules that the government uses to protect the consumer. Okay. And the fourth one is taxes. We're familiar with taxes. You probably hear your parents talk about taxes. You're going to hear taxes mentioned during the debate next Tuesday or throughout this presidential and Senate and Congress, House of Representatives election cycle that we're in. And it's something that is just a reality. In a few slides, you're going to look at what the rate or the percentage of taxes that's paid in the United States. But it's money that's paid to the government. In most cases, this is in a federal or a national income tax. It's also in state income taxes, and then also in sales tax. It's money paid to the government. All right, so I'm gonna leave these up here for an extra few seconds. Make sure everyone got those. Okay, Again, if you have a question, throw it in the chat and I will get back to you, or at least make a change or answer your question. Okay, there are 3 types of economies. All right, the first one is a market economy. In a market economy, producers are free to decide what to make. Producers can make whatever they want, they have complete freedom. Consumers are free to buy whatever they need and want. Okay, there's no government telling you what you need to purchase, what you need to have. For the most part, the government is not involved. This leads to very low taxes and very few regulations or rules. Now, when there's very few regulations, you might not know that the food you're buying is safe. You might have companies that cut corners on making your car or making an airplane or producing the food that you have. And so while you have complete freedom, there's also this trade-off where there's not a government there to protect you as the consumer. And then people own most things. Okay, so in a market economy, you're free to buy and make and sell whatever you want. Very, very little government involvement, very low taxes, and very few regulations. All right. And we'll talk about this here again, but the big thing is when we think of taxes, and I don't love paying taxes, but I think everyone can agree that there's a basic amount of tax that's probably necessary for the good of all people. For example, if we didn't have any taxes, we wouldn't have roads that were paved and maintained by utilities and the Minnesota Department of Transportation. And all schools then would the public school that we all are a part of, that I'm employed by, you're a student in, is paid for by tax dollars. And so our military is paid for by tax dollars. And so there are some basic necessities that I think most people would agree are essential. But the political debate becomes, what is too much? What programs are needed? What programs are not needed? The second economic system is a command economy, a command economic system. This is the opposite of a market economy in that there are many, many, many regulations and very high taxes. Most, if not all, of your income in a true command system would be given to the government. This economic system is most likely seen with a dictatorship. With the government making all decisions in a dictatorship, you would see them wanting to have a lot of control over everyone's lives as well. So many, many, many regulations or rules, very, very high taxes. In countries like China, there's a test that you take when you're age 16 that essentially determines what job you're going to have. And that's because the government is saying, if you score this, you can go into this program. If you score this, you go here. If you don't pass it, you go off and have a lower skilled, lower paying job. And so in a command economic system, there's probably very little unemployment, but people don't have any freedom for the job that they want to have. If you want to be a doctor, maybe now you're an accountant. If you want to be a lawyer, maybe they think you're better as a teacher. Maybe if you want to be, you want to build houses, maybe they think you're better off running a bank. And so you don't have in a true command system, you would have very little to no say about what type of job that you're employed with. And the government would own most things. We would have government would run all schools. You'd be going to the Minnesota or the United States grocery store. You wouldn't be going to a Coburn's or a Walmart, which are owned by private businesses. And so all things would be controlled by the government. And also, last thing, in a lot of cases, the apartment or the house that you would live in would be given to you by the government. But you might say, hey, you work at this factory with 1,000 other people. All of you are going to live on campus with your families at this gigantic campus. You're going to work here and you're going to live here. Very little freedom. Most countries have what's called a mixed economy. All right, this is obviously pretty creative name, is a mix between a market and a command. And the big thing, like I have in bold, no two mixed economic countries are necessarily the same. They can be extremely different. One country could have a 20% tax, another country could have a 70% tax, and those would still be considered mixed economic systems. So just because two countries are mixed does not mean they are the same by any means. United States has a mixed economic system. For example, another person coming in here. Right. For example, in the USA's mixed economic system, we have public schools, Princeton Middle School, Princeton High School, intermediate, primary school. We have private schools. Pease, or Faith Christian in Pease is a private school. St. Cloud Cathedral High School in St. Cloud is a private school. A couple that are close to us, those are private schools. So we have a mixture between public and private schools. We also have a mixture between public and private mail delivery. For example, we have the United States Post Office, which is right on Rum River Drive, right on the main street, right across from Pizza Pub, Pizza Bar and the Sherburne Bank right across the street. You have the post office. That is run by the government. That is a publicly owned thing. Government ran. You also have private mail services, FedEx, UPS. Amazon now is getting into having their own mail delivery system. And so you have a mixture of public and private there. Okay, and so those are just two examples how in our community we see the mix between public and we see the mix between public and private. Okay, so again, two mixed economic countries might be very different. Okay, a country like Norway, Sweden, and Europe, they're a mixed economic system who have higher taxes, way more government programs, all right, compared to the USA, but they're still both mixed economic systems. Nothing to write down here. Just wanted to give you this screen as reference. This is the 2020 tax brackets in the United States. Source, IRS, Internal Revenue System. Don't worry about writing any of this down. Let's think of me. I don't make $100,000. Our family doesn't make $100,000. But if we did, that's a clean number to work with. My wife and I, if we combined, would make $100,000. We would be paying 22% federal tax. So if I made $100,000, my family made $100,000, we would pay $22,000 back into taxes. Now, there are other things such as tax credits and deductions. And one deduction or one tax credit you can talk to your parents about is when they fill their tax out. And this is a little secret. So if they're sitting by you, they might not be happy with me sharing this. Is that for every child or dependent that they have, they get $2,000 as a tax credit. So when your parents are telling you to get off your Instagram or you're telling you whatever, say, well, I want my $2,000 that you got because of me. Now, obviously, it costs way more than $2,000 to provide food, transportation, clothing for probably that cell phone that you're using as well, way more than $2,000. But that's an example of a tax credit, which kind of adjusts how much money that you would have to pay on your taxes. But generally speaking, this is the chart that you would pay based on your income to the U.S. government. So again, if you're making $100,000 as a married couple, you would be paying 22%. But if you made $100,000 as an individual, you'd be paying 24%, so $24,000. Just a couple examples how that changes. Notice the more money you make, that rate goes up 22, 24, 32, 35, 37%. Okay? Last slide here. I think there's a couple of words you need to write down, but this will hopefully help you visually understand these different economic systems. So you see market on the top, followed by mixed, and then command. All right? Notice, like in math class, these each have value. So in a market system, you have very low taxes. In a command system, you have very high taxes. Okay? Obviously, mixed is somewhere in between. Like I mentioned, just because a country maybe is here and a country is here doesn't mean they're the same, but they have the same economic system. They're mixed. They have a balance of, they have a mixture between public and private goods and services. Same thing with regulations. Over here, you have very few regulations. Up here, you have many government regulations. Okay? All right. Gap in wealth is a different one. So if you were to make $100,000 in a market system, I'm going to do my math here in my paper, $100,000 in a market system, and you paid low taxes, let's say you paid 1% tax, okay, you would have $99,000 left as you'd be paying $1,000 to tax. In a command system, if you had $100,000, and let's say you paid 99% tax back to the government, you would have $1,000 to spend on your own. And so when we talk about gap in wealth, that is the gap between rich and poor. In a market system, you're going to have a big gap between rich and poor because there's not a lot of money going back to the government. In a command system, you're going to have a really small gap, and everyone essentially ends up having pretty close to the same amount of money. Because if you started with $100 in a command system and paid 99%, you'd have $1 left. But $1 is a lot closer to $1,000 than over here paying 1%, you'd have $99 compared to 99,000. Okay, so when we talk about gap in wealth, that just means the gap between rich and poor based on what's being given back to the government. Same thing for economic freedom. In a market system, you have complete freedom. In a command system, you have very little freedom. For those of you that are joining us late, we're going through the economic systems notes. I am recording this, so you'll be able to watch this on your own to get anything that you missed. All right? This is a good slide to refer back to when you're studying for a quiz or a test that might be coming up here next week. All right? So I'm going to pause the recording. All right, so now that we're done with the notes, if you go into Schoology, let's go to our distance group here. All right, you'll notice that there, when we click on week 3, we go into Thursday and Friday. All right, and then you'll notice that we have the Friday directions here, and then we have we just did the economic systems notes. This is the actual presentation as well if you want to go back and look at that. But the assignment for today is People's Pie. This is an iCivics game that you'll be playing. It's open right here. So you can click this link. It'll bring you to iCivics. All right. A couple of things you need to be aware of. One, all right, this has happened with the kids yesterday. Well, first off, click no thanks. But the first thing you're going to have is, oh, that was confusing. Right around here, okay, right by the star, some of you might not be able to access the game right away because the game is technically a pop-up. And so most of your settings block pop-ups. And so there's going to be a little rectangle that pops up here. You need to click on this and it will bring you to your settings. And then you need to allow Flash to run. And then you'll be good to go, or allow Flash and or pop-ups. But a few kids had questions with it. They were able to figure it out once I emailed them. So just be aware if the game doesn't pop up, there's going to be something here that's going to be blocked. Click on it, and it should bring you to your settings that you can change. All right? So and if you can't figure that out, email me. We'll work on it together. Once you've done that, click no thanks. You don't need to register. All right? Then the game's going to start. All right, you see a new game. So I'll click these directions. You can follow these along. All right, you'll notice over here taxes. We've talked about this with our economic systems. All right, corporate tax, payroll tax, income tax. If I go high on the income tax, notice that I have more money available, right? $0 up to now 1.4 trillion. But down below, you have citizen satisfaction. That's going to change. Notice how that goes down. So the decisions that you make, and I put high taxes and everything, the citizen satisfaction goes really low. I'm going to mute that. All right. If I go low on the taxes or none, I have higher citizen satisfaction. All right. Just something to be aware of. And then you go through and you kind of change some of these sorts of things within the game. I would encourage you to play the game once, maybe even twice, and then you will answer these 8 questions. This is your assignment that is due. It is due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. along with the government comparison from Tuesday. So this assignment and the government comparison are due at 11:59 on Sunday. But when you go to question 5, you will take the 10 different services that are offered by a country: Social Security and Medicare, financial services, agriculture, education, military, whatever, and you will rank them 1 through 10. Now, I would just go like this, whatever yours is, go right down the list. Social Security and Medicare, and then let's go anything financial services, defense and military, whatever. Whatever of the 10 programs you think are the most important, that is how you'll rank them in that order. All right? You will then have some questions where you'll answer why you think that. Please be specific. This shouldn't be like, Defense and military is number 1 because I think it's important to be strong. Well, that doesn't really tell me anything. Give me some more information. Okay? And so make sure when you're answering these questions, you're writing in complete sentences. Have fun. It's a game. Play around with it. If you need to play it once or twice before you answer the questions, that's fine. Remember, it might block you from being able to play. It's because you either have pop-ups blocked and or flash. Make sure that you click on that little box that's right here next to the star that will pop up. Okay? That's it for today. Again, this is due 11:59 on Sunday, as is the government comparison. So if you want to stick around and have any questions, please do so. Otherwise, I'm going to stop my screen share. I'm going to stop the recording. And then if you want to